thinks it is.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm not certain Dave Chappelle wants to be included in this photograph.
I don't know.
He's like, what? He wants to be included in this narrative. He definitely is in the photograph, but
he is definitely in the photograph. That is true. I don't know what his view is on this, so I'm leaving him aside for right now and focusing on her. Now I want to get to the 53,000 of you who voted for the community garbage person of the week. And here is your top 5, tied for 5 and 4. At 6% of the vote, you have Marjorie Greene for her memoir that no one is reading. It's awful. Okay. It's filled with conspiracy theories and lies, and it's not even selling well. With George Santos for saying being expelled would be an honor. He was actually expelled after much of that vote came in. Coming in number 3 with 15% of the vote, you have Ted Cruz for introducing a new transphobic bill. At number 2 with 34% of the vote, you have Donald Trump for wanting to repeal Obamacare if elected. But none of that stood out as much as the 40% of you who voted for Elon Musk for going to Israel to pretend that he isn't anti-Semitic after spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and then coming back and saying it's not an apology tour. I just happened to go there. Your community garbage person of the week. Thank you everybody who voted. Brett, any quick thoughts for you end?
I'm just happy to be here, John.
I'm just glad to have you here. Thank you for your work on Happy Half Hour and joining us on the show. Thank you.
You're not the only person that's going to be on the show, on the main show today. You know that Jorby Dorby is going to be on hour 2 presenting some stories.
He is. Everybody tune in for Jorby Dorby. It's going to have fun. Jank and Rivana, I believe, are joining Jorby Dorby.
Correct.
Okay, everyone tune in for that. For now, though, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richey. Good to be with you. Very good to be with you. Breaking down news of the day, none other than Ray Vanna, Rebel HQ contributor and superstar. Should be a fascinating analysis. Top story of the day, United States Congressman caught on camera threatening a former staff member. Here it is.
You understand me? You understand me? You think I don't know? Hey, why don't you get the police in?
Well, Congressman, what was that about? Let's put up the picture full mass. I have some detail worth mentioning. Per Mediaite, Representative Brandon Williams, Republican out of New York, was caught on camera threatening a former staffer during a tense confrontation at a holiday charity event on Thursday in DC. In a video posted by Syracuse University student reporter Luke Raydale, Williams could be seen shouting at a man identified by captions as his former campaign manager and pointing his finger toward his face. Now, this is the stately picture of the congressman here. The former staffer seemed visibly shaken, attempted to respond, quote, "I don't know what you're," and then Williams cut him off. "Do you understand me? You think I don't know?" he screamed. As an unidentified woman intervened, Williams told her, "Hey, why don't you get the police in?" The congressman, who assumed office in January 2023, then turned toward the person recording the encounter and seemingly assaulted the camera. Okay, that's what it seemed like. In an interview with Semaphore, following the incident, Williams accused the former staffer of saying, quote, "incredibly vile things," end quote, about his wife and daughter, accusations the former staffer has denied. Quote, "I haven't said anything about his family," the ex-staffer insisted, claiming that Williams had confronted him and another former employee after hearing unspecified rumors. Now, I'm going to say this, Congressman, if you are bent out of shape about someone talking about your wife and your daughter, please don't run for president against Donald Trump, because they will be front and center of the conversation, sir. And would you have that same energy against Donald Trump if he talked about your wife and your daughter? But I actually believe the staffer, I think the congressman made that part up to seem justified. In a statement, and I want you to see the justification, Williams, the spokesperson, claimed the two former staffers, quote, were fired by the congressman earlier this year, and that both individuals, the one being confronted by the congressman and the one filming, made rude comments about the female members of the congressman's family, end quote. And then the spokesperson said, these individuals planted stories with the media, and one of them physically shoved the congressman at a holiday event. Edited from the video. As a former nuclear submarine officer known for his temperament and poise, tonight should be a lesson to all. Never go after this Navy nukes family, end quote. You know, you are a horrible spokesperson. Let's put up the picture of the individual who was the former staffer. You see, this person is a private citizen, which means, spokesperson, you have represented these elements as facts. You have represented that they did, in fact, plant stories to the media. You have represented one of them at least did, in fact, physically assault a United States congressman. Because of that proclamation and you being an agent of the congressman, this is basically the congressional office saying this about these two private individuals. If this is not true, they have all right to sue you. All right to sue you. And I'm glad I have somebody else who can talk about that and wax poetic more than I can. Ray Vanna, I mean, to me, this is golden. I mean, the spokesperson has set up the perfect grand slam, in my opinion. Thoughts?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. First, I'll say between Brandon Williams and George Santos, what the hell is going on with this
Right.
freshman class of Republicans coming out of the state of New York? Just no tact, no class amongst this group of Republicans. I'll also say that I think that people have sort of a misconception about the way politics works and the prevalence of this type of behavior. I'm glad this is getting coverage, but I think that a lot of people in this country have a West Wing version of the way things happen in Washington, when I think the show Veep actually paints a lot more of an accurate picture of how things play out in the background. You see sort of these blowups happen kind of frequently when you're working in Washington politics. Not to say that it's acceptable. In fact, to say the exact opposite, it's completely unacceptable. And what we have here is a congressman who's, through his spokespeople, justifying this behavior as righteous anger about supposed unsubstantiated comments about his wife and daughter. You got into politics. Politics is a dirty game. Even let's say that these comments were made. That doesn't give you a justification to assault a private citizen. This isn't even someone who worked, in his congressional office. This is a campaign staffer, a former campaign staffer. And then, as you were pointing out, Dr. Ritchie, now you also have a potential claim for defamation, because they're not claiming that these were, rumors that the congressman heard. They stated it, as you pointed out, as fact. This campaign staffer was named. This isn't, a public figure. It's a private individual who just is a campaign staffer. Not exactly a glorious job. Often grueling hours for low pay. And so now they've given this individual, both of these individuals who they named, an opportunity to take him to court and to try to clear their names through our legal system. And I think that, if I don't have all of the background facts on this, of course, but if these were just unsubstantiated rumors or downright lies about them, they should absolutely do that. And it might even be necessary for them in order to continue working in Republican politics.
That's right. Or they can just come to indisputable, set the record straight. Right. Same thing, court of law or indisputable, either one. All right. We will give you an update if an update develops. T.I. in Atlanta. Tip pulls up at a bar. Why? Because the bar is false representing, saying that T.I. and his son, indicating per the flyer, they will be in the building. And at least Tip was. Here it is.
You can talk to me. Until then, ain't nothing going. Ain't nobody getting nothing going. Nothing. Call who you need to call. Do what you need to do. Ain't nothing happening. No money, no beers, no partying, no sections, nothing. You put me and mine on the flyer, give me everything. And if you can't, don't play with me. I don't know if y'all from here. Don't play with me in this city. It's my city. Don't play with me in this city.
Yeah. Tip was involved in leading a local economic boycott of the establishment. Very peaceful, no violence happened whatsoever. In addition to that, the individual or the individuals who were involved, they seemed to have remedied the situation. But I will give you the background and the update. So T.I. has had an eventful week. So the infamous incident with his 19-year-old son, King Harris, that happened at the Falcons game. Falcons versus New Orleans, great rivalry. That went viral. The rapper and business owner has now found his next viral moment after he was caught on camera going off at the entrance of a club. And I think it was quite appropriate. In the video that was posted on social media, rapper was seen having a very loud one-sided argument with someone outside of an establishment. All right, so that's part of the narrative. So he continued, quote, "Ain't nobody getting nothing going, Nothing. Call who you need to call. Do what you need to do. Ain't nothing happening. No money, no beers, no partying, no sections. Nothing. You put me in mind on the MF flyer. Give me everything. And if you can't, don't play with me. I don't know if y'all from here, but don't play with me in this city. This is my city. The ex-user that posted a video, Stephen Dingle, had an accompanying TikTok where he gave an explanation as to what actually went down. So here's some more detail.
Listen, this is coming live from Standing on Business at 5. Let me tell you how Atlanta folks stand on business. Y'all know Atlanta is not a real place. And y'all know we go crazy with party flyers. We always see for MLK weekend, or if something happens on social media, we use a flyer, create a flyer out of it. So y'all know the situation that happened with T.I. Tiny and their son King at the Falcons game this past Sunday. So of course, in typical Atlanta fashion, a promoter made a flyer. Here's one of the flyers right here. Folks said, but this right here is the more important flyer. I just want y'all to take note of the photo, the location, the club, 11:45, and when. This Wednesday, R&B Wednesday. So they used the situation that made this flyer. It's very important to the store. So I got word last night that apparently this flyer made it to T.I. And of course, what I'm about to say is a dramatization of what happened because I wasn't there. But what I'm about to say did happen. So T.I. saw this flyer and said, oh, word? They want to play with me like that? That's a bet. I'll be up there in a minute. And no, this is last night because today's Wednesday when I'm posting this. But we talking about Tuesday night. So apparently, Tip goes 11:45 to just holler at some folks to tell them, you can't play with me like this. Like, we ain't doing this one. You are not using some tomfoolery from the internet regarding me and my family, especially me and my son, and using me to promote a nightclub. We ain't doing that one. So I ain't gonna talk about what happened, what went on from there. I don't know. That part, I don't know. But what I do know is that this is the new flyer. And Tip and King will be at 11:45 tonight for R&B Wednesday.
R&B Wednesdays, yes. You see, the economic boycott, while short-lived, was effective because they're actually on a flyer and getting paid for the service as they should have been in the beginning. And I want to connect this to something because there's this required relationship, obviously, between industry and artist. And this permeates all the way to Hollywood, naturally, right? Music industry, entertainment, etc. But anytime there's a level of usury, regardless of what level that comes at, and it doesn't matter who's doing it, the artist or the industry execs, promoters, you name it, it should be called out, period. Fairness has more than a place. Fairness is required when you deal with me. And it should be required when people deal with you, all right? And sometimes fairness has to be asserted. But it appears T.I. eventually worked it out. All of the issues with the lounge because, as you see, he and King were there for R&B Wednesday, all right? His other son was there as well. And King posted a story of him and his brother playing their new song, Father Like Sons. All right. You know, it ended well, actually, I think. Rayvon, thoughts here?
I love a story with a happy ending, and I think this one is. I'm really glad we're covering this story because it gives me an opportunity to talk about one of my favorite aspects of property law, which is publicity rights. Everybody has them. As public figures, Dr. Richie and I and T.I., of course, all have publicity rights, but even you, someone who is probably not a public figure, have publicity rights. You have the sole right to profit off of your likeness. And what was happening in this case was the club was profiting off of the likeness of T.I. as well as his son without giving them any benefit, without paying for the right to use their image or, cutting them a deal benefiting from it and then also paying them out without creating a partnership or without getting any sort of explicit permission, which is why you saw him blow up at him, that promoter, which I think was reasonable, extremely reasonable on several levels. But what they did end up doing was coming to a solution where, it's a mutually beneficial relationship now. And they got some, just continue using the word publicity. They got some added publicity from all of this now that they're going to continue to profit off of. So it's a win-win situation at the end of the day. I'm happy to see it.
Yeah. And because the club rolled with it, you're right. They actually got a great benefit out of it at the end of the day. Okay, hell of a thing. Two people in a presidential debate, not a presidential debate. It was interesting. So I'm going to take you to a few highlights from the Governor Newsom and Governor DeSantis debate. Here it is.
I think it's important, the folks watching, they're probably wondering, what are we actually doing here? And I want to answer that very directly. I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm here to tell the truth about the Biden-Harris record and also compare and contrast Ron DeSantis' record and the Republican Party's record as a point of contrast that's as different as daylight and darkness. You want to bring us back to a pre-1960s world, America in reverse. You want to roll back hard-earned national rights on voting rights, on civil rights, on LGBTQ rights, on women's rights, not just access to abortion, but also access to contraception. You want to weaponize grievance. You are focusing on false separateness. You in particular, Ron, are on a banning binge, a cultural purge, intimidating and humiliating people you disagree with. You and President Trump are really trying to light democracy on fire. So, Sean, there are profound differences tonight, and I look forward to engaging them. But there's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024.
Got him. I mean, whoever wrote that one-liner for the opener, please give that person a raise and keep that individual on your team. Yes, that was the icebreaker. Put it up full mass. All right. Beneath those smiles was a lot of contention for the other. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican, and California Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, went head-to-head during a fiery 90-minute Fox News debate moderated by none other than Sean Hannity and branded as the great red versus blue state debate on Thursday as the governors, one a current presidential contender, the other one seen as a future prospect for the Democratic Party, clashed over their records, policy, taking jabs at one another, sometimes over key issues. So let me give you the takeaways on my end. Given the role age expected to play in the 2024 presidential contest, the two governors, when compared to the 81-year-old Biden and the 77-year-old Trump, are young rising stars in their respective parties. Almost every question asked by Sean Hannity will be viewed through the lens of the current presidential race as the two jousted over whose state is doing better. Newsom, 56 years of age, defended the Biden administration and stiff-armed suggestions that he will run while scoring digs against DeSantis, who's 45, who has struggled since entering the GOP primary. Now, I'm going to say this. I think the debate actually put the nail in the coffin for DeSantis being a serious presidential candidate. And they may be looking at him side-eye from Florida at this point. Because clearly, one, he has the personality of a rock, a mean rock. He tries, but he cannot land it. He also is not very swift and, let's just say, thoughtful about his own policies. He doesn't seem to understand them. Or he's engaged in some massive gaslighting himself. Probably both are true. Joe Biden will be our nominee in a matter of weeks, Newsom said. And in a matter of weeks, Ron will be endorsing Donald Trump as nominee for the Republican Party. But Florida's leader struck back by calling attention to how voters remain pessimistic about higher costs, and many don't believe the president is up to the job. At one point, DeSantis accused Newsom of running a, quote, shadow campaign for president in 2024, a premise the California governor has rejected vigorously and gone to great lengths to dispute, posed by Hannity if he would say unequivocally he would not run in 2024 under any circumstances. Newsom quickly shot back, correct. COVID-19. DeSantis has hung so much of his popularity among conservatives on resisting COVID-19 restrictions. He boasted about the restrictions during the debate, claiming the California governor hurt the economy, hurt students by refusing to release certain closures. So here it is.
They tax too much. They regulate too much. They have a political agenda. It's not a good climate for business. They've lost a lot of companies. A lot of companies have moved to Texas. We have had some to Florida, but they've lost a lot of companies to Texas because they're not doing a good job looking out for folks and not creating a good business environment. And, when I have people that come to Florida, they tell me, you guys actually want us to succeed in Florida. And they feel like when they're in California, they don't want business to succeed.
Is that what Disney's saying, the Tampa Bay Rays?
Well, actually, yeah. I think that's an interesting point with Disney because I had Disney open during COVID and we made them a fortune and we saved a lot of jobs. You had Disney closed inexplicably for over a year. You were not following science. You were a lockdown governor. You did a lot of damage to your people. You had more kids locked out of school for a longer period of time in California than anywhere else in the country. It was the working class kids. It was the middle income kids. His kids were in private school. They were in class in person. He locked people out because of the teachers union. He is owned by the teachers union. You will never cross the teachers union.
This is just a lot of hot
lock, stock, and barrel.
All right, and we have more. So Newsom fired back by pointing out the negative health consequences and how DeSantis embraced restrictions in the early days of the crisis when Florida declared the pandemic an emergency and imposed closures at beaches, bars, and restaurants. You even wore a mask, Newsom said. He did all of that until he decided to fall prey to the fringe of his party. And as a consequence of that run, tens of thousands of people lost their lives, end quote. And let me go to the mispronouncing of the VP's name, Kamala Harris. During one of the smaller exchanges during the COVID-19 portion of the debate, Newsom called out DeSantis over the pronunciation of Vice President Kamala Harris's name. Newsom interrupted DeSantis, saying the Florida Republican was insulting her on purpose. Here it is.
What Gavin Newsom does in California is kowtow to the teachers union. Whatever they tell him to do, he does. He will never balk the teachers union. That's why the kids were locked out of school for so long. Joe Biden is in the pocket of the teachers union, and so is Kamala Harris. That's why they fought school openings when he came in there.
It's Kamala
when they had
Harris,
that in
Ron.
there.
It's Kamala
Biden came
Harris,
into office
Madam
and he
Vice
brought in the
President
teacher union to be able to do all these different things to try to keep the schools closed.
At least it was caught, right? Really, the slight is the lack of honoring the VP in front of that name. There's more, all right? So California versus Florida. Let's get into it. Much of the debate also touched on how differently red and blue states address problems, from taxation to violent crime. At the outset, DeSantis and Newsom battled over why Americans are leaving more liberal-leaning states to more conservative ones, according to census data. DeSantis, who at one point held up a map documenting human feces in San Francisco, noted how even Newsom's father-in-law moved to the Sunshine State in recent years. New population data has shown roughly 29,000 Floridians moved to California, compared to about 51,000 who did the reverse. He's the first governor to ever lose population, DeSantis said. They actually at one point ran out of U-Hauls in the state of California because so many people were leaving. At various points when Hannity contrasted the two states, Newsom defended the Golden State's achievement and huge population, saying his state has no peers. Let's go to abortion. Newsom was pressed by DeSantis and Hannity on what restrictions, if any, he would support in the final months of pregnancy. He declined to engage with the question of at what stage the procedure should be prohibited. However, quote, I trust the mother and doctor to make the decision, end quote, is what Newsom said. Newsom returned fire by pressing DeSantis to explain if he would sign a 6-week national abortion ban, similar to the legislation he signed into law in Florida, which he said, even Donald Trump said it was too extreme. DeSantis dodged Newsom's question, however, instead telling Hannity he supports the culture of life and pivoted to how Democrats won't say if they support any regulation on abortion. And then immigration. As the two sparred over immigration and border management, Newsom accused DeSantis of luring migrants under false pretense by offering jobs and housing, an accusation stemming from the effort to organize flights for migrants to Martha's Vineyard and a few other places. His office organized similar flights to Sacramento, California, and other over the summer. That kind of gamesmanship, using human beings as pawns, I think is disqualifying, Newsom said. And I think it's actually more than disqualifying, it's criminal. It's criminal. Those are human beings, right? They actually are under the protection of the United States justice system. And so if you decide to do something criminal against an individual who may be undocumented, doesn't matter, documented or undocumented, that person has the right of justice. You should be punished. All right. There was a lot there. Rayvana, what were your thoughts about this fascinating debate?
Fascinating is the exact word I was about to use to describe it. So before the debate happened a few weeks back, Gavin Newsom said that Ron DeSantis lost the debate the moment that he said that he would do it, the moment he agreed to it. Not because, Gavin Newsom was necessarily, touting his debate expertise, which he does have. He's very politician-like. He went into the right career for himself. But because there's no reason for Ron DeSantis to be debating Gavin Newsom right now. Gavin Newsom, as he pointed out at the debate, is not running for president. His job there was to represent the Biden-Harris administration. And, for all of the disagreements I have politically with both the Biden-Harris administration and Gavin Newsom, he did a wonderful job at that. He went in to list all of those points, to give the DNC's arguments against the Republican Party. He did an excellent job, whereas Ron DeSantis went in extremely ill-prepared, really not to represent his policies, not to represent his record, but to attack California, which doesn't benefit him in this primary. It gave Gavin Newsom an opportunity to point out that Trump is beating him by 41 points in his own state and the Republican primary. But the most important thing that I think Gavin Newsom was able to do was to attack the Republican position on abortion, because we've seen time and time again now, multiple elections, across this country, that abortion restrictions are deeply unpopular. People want to protect abortion. Every time it's been put on the ballot for the people to vote on, they have protected abortion. So what we're seeing right now is the DNC, the Democratic Party in state parties are gearing up to try to get ballot measures in 2024 in swing states to give people their ability to protect abortion in those states, so that people who are going to vote Democrat are going to go out to the polls in order to protect their rights to abortion. It's an excellent strategy, and Gavin Newsom did a really, really good job at pushing the party line, and I think really laid, for better, for worse. I'm not sure that this is, necessarily the direction I want to see the country going in, but definitely laid the path for him to run in 2028.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I also agreed with the comment Newsom made early, that as soon as DeSantis said yes, he has already admitted defeat, because there is no way running for president, you pause to debate a guy who's not running for president. All right, still fascinating. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Hey everyone, Mateo Scarapo here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, He has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only Black salesperson there. He's the only Black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token Black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Hi, I'm Cenk Uygur. My new audiobook, Justice is Coming, is now available. So you can start listening now at Amazon, Audible, or wherever books and audiobooks are sold.
Don't allow the powerful to see you feeling hopeless. Even if you do feel hopeless, wallow in your pity and your misery. And I believe me, I do it all the time in the privacy of your own home, but never let them see that they're getting to you. Never let them think that we're gonna give up or that we feel defeated or deflated. You gotta put your game face on and you gotta keep fighting.
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one.
I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
All right, welcome back. A lot of show left. Always good to be with you. We got a lot of comments, all right? This one is kind of long. Rocky Mountain Dragon. I'm so glad to have the best, the most honest doctor and the ray of sunshine for me to start my month free of news. Dr. Richie is one of the best voices in the world, and we're lucky to have a true and bright light like Ray to help him and us, to lead us through the rest of the year. You two are such a shining light in such a dark time. Love you too, and the TLT fam. I'll see you in 2024. I know you'll help everyone get to the next year, uplifted, educated, and united. Doc and Ray, all the love from the mountains, and we love you back. We appreciate that sentiment, okay? Thank you for that. Randy C. If I understand it correctly, DeSantis has never gone head to head against a Democrat in his political career. It seemed like that. I think he has, but it definitely seemed like that on stage. Interesting. Miss Cardio Queen says, talking about the congressman yelling at the fundraiser. That's a good place to have a confrontation at a charity event. These cats don't care. They don't care at all. And yeah, Tanya Ladd-Maralt. T.I.'s dealing with a teenager. I have 2 children that went through the teenage stages of challenging parents. You cannot let teenagers and early 20s push you to this. Yeah, that's interesting. I agree, Selena Martinez. He slammed DeSantis. I mean, bad. I mean, DeSantis, on a scale of 1 to 10, DeSantis registers as a 2, in my opinion. He did horrible at the debate. And James Thompson, thank you for gifting the indisputable membership. Overseer Dixon, Doc is back in the house. I'm back in the house. All right, I'm glad to be back. And Franklin, I think this is Franklin's Sharp Slicer, 6. Richie and Ravana, pride and joy. You two always please us, this 71-year-old boy. Well, we're glad that we bring you a little light. Okay, got something for everybody. I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
So this Karen, based on the video, went from anti-Palestinian to anti-Black. Let's put up one of the pictures full of mass. I'm going to give you the background to this insanity. She decided to do exactly what you saw because people were engaged in pro-Palestinian protest. A pro-Palestinian group. Palestinians are human beings. This is a pro-human being group, regardless of your opinion about any conflict in the Middle East. Per Atlanta Black Star, the Karen was caught on camera spitting at a crowd of pro-Palestinian demonstrators in a California mall last week. While leaning over a side rail, she not only showered the group with her saliva, but according to the narrative, she ends up doing it to a little girl, a child, a Black child. When confronted by the child's father, she went from bashing the Palestinian supporters to cursing Black people. The protest happened at the Westfield Mall in San Jose, California, and called for a permanent ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war during the Black Friday shopping frenzy. A lot of people, a lot of activity, a lot of eyes, a lot of ears. According to the footage circulating online and other reports, the protesters were gathered on the mall's main floor in the lobby. The woman was several floors up, mocking and ridiculing them from above. At one point, she flipped her middle finger at the demonstrators and then spat on them. And see, that's the part that's illegal. You have the right, madam, to flip off somebody. You do. I would not encourage it, but you do have the right to do so, just as they had the right to engage in a proclamation of who they support. They have a right to do so. You, however, do not have the right to assault them. And yes, utilizing your bodily fluid in such a way is considered assault. Many have been prosecuted for such. The camera does not capture her actually hitting the child with the saliva, but a Black man with the child said they were standing next to her and that she was spat on too. Don't tell me what to do, she says to him before he tells her that she spat on or near the little girl, as she clarified and shared who the spit was intended for. She barked as she walked away, F black people, end quote. Yeah. So once again, the isms, they never travel alone, all right? A person isn't just racist against this group without likely being racist against, well, more. And while she's trying to justify her aim, the reality is no person should ever believe they have the right to spit on another human being, period. But this individual, not connected to any of the protests, not even in the actual vicinity on the floor of the protest, upstairs decides to lean over a rail, put her own self in danger, and hurl her disgust. Well, somebody knows her. I do think it's time for an intervention. All right, Rayvana, thoughts?
Yeah, maybe that intervention could, come from a potential hate crime investigation. That's what I would like to see, because as you pointed out, it's illegal to spit on people. No matter how justified or angry she felt like she was in that moment, it is illegal to spit on people. So there is a crime there, an underlying crime. And then there is the, ability, you hear her say effing black people at the end. The racism is apparent there. And I think you made an excellent point, Dr. Ritchie, by pointing out that it's very, very rare that racism is isolated at, or specific against one group of people.
That's right.
We've seen in the past weeks and, months now, this rabid anti-Palestinian sentiment being driven, not by a love for, Israel or the Jewish people, but a hate for Palestinians and Muslims more broadly. The most rabid elements, the most anti-Palestinian elements of those groups of people. And what we saw here was her manifesting that racism, that hatred, by spitting on that group of people. And regardless of whether or not she spit accidentally on that black girl, it doesn't matter, because at the end of her interaction with the father, she says, as I said, effing black people, to show her disgust and her racism towards black people as well. And there's been silence from the state of California's hate crime investigation bureau thus far. I would like them to respond to the comments being requested from these news organizations so that we can see that there's some sort of progress being made. I can't believe that we're how a week or so out from this video being uploaded and we don't have this woman's name yet.
Yep.
That is shocking to me. I know the internet can work fast. Let's get a name. Let's get some action. Let's make sure that she's not able to go and act with racist impunity in the future.
Right. And make sure that there's an example set of how the public, how our authorities will respond to such a thing. Okay. All right. We'll bring you updates as they come. Double dose.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
You're still free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
There's no chair.
Who? Bro, leave.
Find it.
Bro, you need to leave.
You. Where did you come from?
Good.
No, shut up. Where did you come from? That's what I thought. This is your hood.
I'm in the hood now.
You're in charge now.
I'm in the hood.
Dude, what do you want? Like, I'm going to get, like... Oh my gosh, dude.
Please don't touch me.
Don't touch her, bro. Don't touch her. Fucking touch her. Don't touch her. I swear to God.
Here we go.
Bro, this will be it. This will be it. You just pushed her. You just assaulted her. And it's on camera.
Put it up. Put it up.
Don't.
Okay.
Put it up.
Get this.
I know where you're from. I know where you're from. What's up?
Hey,
What's up?
hey,
What's up?
All right, put him up full mass. I have significant background here. So this was a shocking and very dangerous moment for the two hotel workers who were being attacked. He's a Marine, okay? The Marine attacks two San Diego hotel workers, including a woman who is not even 5 feet tall, okay? Before being knocked out by a metal lamp. The video shows a male identified now as Jason Frink approaching the hotel desk, asking for a room. When the two women behind the counter told him that there was no availability, the man became hostile and began swearing at the employees. Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton confirmed to ABC 10 News that the Marine, Mr. Frink, has retained his position as a sergeant on base. Yeah. So what you see is basically what you get here in this video. I mean, to have that kind of anger and violence because someone made a factual proclamation about the business restriction. They can't kick somebody out of the hotel for you to get in one. And then you decide to physically assault, to attack. There should definitely be an arrest here. There's no provocation, no reason, no self-defense for you. But according to the last report per ABC News local affiliate, he's retained his position as sergeant, meaning supervisor. All right, thoughts here?
I'll say it's a little bit nice to see a Karen finally get their ass beat for once. It doesn't really happen that often, and he definitely deserved that. Of course, the situation is horrific, but it's not surprising to me that he was able to, retain his rank after assaulting women, considering that the military has shown that they approve of assaulting women. They have, shuffled under the rug time and time again reports of sexual assault that happened to female Marines, female members of the military, violence against women, the violence, spousal violence. They don't care when the violence is happening against female Marines. They're people they're supposed to be protecting, people who should be viewed as their own. So I'm not shocked at all. I wish that, and I'm glad we're covering this story, hopefully to get more eyes on it, maybe create more outrage at this scenario that he's able to retain his position after assaulting women, maybe drunkenly, but it doesn't matter. That is behavior unbecoming of a member, a United States service member, and there should be repercussions. There should have been legal repercussions as well. We're just not seeing that play out. So, we got to keep attention on stories like this, keep pressure on these institutions to maybe get a shred of accountability more than just him getting his ass beat with a lamp.
Yeah. That was just the beginning of justice. We still have a justice system that has to get some of that as well. And they simply were engaged in self-defense against a person trying to harm them. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Now, I'm going to do something very different here and read some one-star reviews of the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Donnie Franchise said, pretty much it's like listening to a trash compactor. Someone else said, negative, anti-American propaganda. And others said, out of context, misquotes, typical leftists who are afraid to debate, just smear. These two would be perfect for CNN or MSLSD. Well, Donnie, you might have a point, because I feel like a trash compactor right now after taking in all those garbage reviews. But thanks for listening anyway. We are, in fact, unapologetically progressive. And if you're not ready for bold commentary, then we're not the show for you. On the Young Turks, we speak up about the issues that matter, and we want to make positive change happen. And now here's why we actually do the show. Mariel Morales said, found this podcast from the True Crime Podcast, Fruit Loops, and other great progressive podcasts. I've become an instant fan of the Young Turks. Great conversation, great takes, Very well composed, factual podcast. Very informative. Love to hear that. Z55 said, it's a joy to experience such awareness and intelligence from fascinating people. And Anna is gorgeous and brilliant. Apparently I'm just fascinating, but I'll take it. Paul for Progress said, news well delivered. Appreciate it. KOOK said, Democrats and Republicans are fair game for TYT. And if Anna or Cenk provide disinformation about anything, they will admit they made a mistake and correct it. We appreciate you noticing that we are honest. To people who actually listen to the substance of the show, thank you. Your listenership supports what we do. Leave a 5-star rating for the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Let's take the ratings back from the trolls. Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. Here at TYT, we understand this. That's why we're not gonna price gouge you or use inflation as an excuse to raise our prices. A TYT membership is not your typical subscription, but basic membership is still just $4.99. So what do you get for that price? For starters, you're getting exclusive programming, unique, exclusive designs from Shop TYT, access to a members-only chat, giveaways, emojis, and so many other amazing perks. But most importantly, you're helping to make an impact. As a TYT member, you not only help us do the shows every day, but you drive real positive change in the process. In 2017, we helped to start Justice Democrats right here on TYT. That's a group that got 12 progressives elected into Congress. That's amazing, you did that. Your support also funds TYT's very own investigative reporting. Just recently, our reporters exposed the Fellowship Foundation and pressured lawmakers into boycotting that bigoted event. Isn't that amazing? We raised over $30,000 for Jackson, Mississippi and delivered clean water to thousands of people in need. Our petitions, polls, and community of activists help keep the corruption of Washington in check. That's the impact of what just $4.99 a month from our members can do. And we're just getting started. Positive change doesn't occur overnight, but with your contribution, we can make it happen together. Times are tough in America. The cost of living is through the roof. But mainstream media doesn't talk about the stories that actually matter to your everyday life. At TYT, we cover the stories that corporate media wouldn't dare to talk about. But we need your support to do it. You can't put a price on fighting for positive change. So become a TYT member at a price that's right for you. So that way you get to pick the price. When you go to tyt.com/join, scroll down to the name your price option, and you can become a member at a price point that makes sense for you.
All right, welcome back. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda still. I'm going to read just a couple of quick comments. Winter Scoop says, I'm sorry, Dr. Rich, as a Marine veteran, we don't accept him. Yeah. And yeah. RHYS. One of the lowest low down things is to spit on another. That's right. I agree. Okay. Black Lives Matter. They continue to denounce this individual who has claimed to be a leader of BLM and endorsed Donald Trump. Now, I have some words to say about this personally. I've been waiting to get back in the air chair to do so. Naturally, we invite the young man to come on to the program anytime in the bullpen, anytime on Indisputable. Here's a reminder video.
You know, this is my favorite story of the day because it identifies with what I've seen in the barbershop. All the brothers, for some reason right now, are turning tides right now. And I just wonder, what is the big reason?
I think personally, it's the duplicity of the Democrats, the hypocrisy. We're not stupid. The brothers are not stupid. We understand when someone's for us and when someone is not. And it's obvious that the Democratic Party is not for us.
You're not saying the entire Republican Party. You're saying Donald Trump. So what is it about Donald Trump? Is it the economics? You noted the black family. What is it going to take for him to shore up this support amongst black voters?
A lot of people are misinformed. They don't really understand because they don't educate themselves on Donald Trump as a person and his history. But if they do that, and it's going to take, leaders, educated leaders, getting the word out there, I think that it'll happen on its own. It'll be organic because personally, I love the man.
Why did you end up leaving Black Lives Matter? Or are you still affiliated with it?
No, I'm still affiliated with it. My message that I preach and that I tout is unity. It's a message of unity. It's unity driven. I want to bring together all the marginalized groups from the margins and bring them to the center because we're stronger together as a one nation under indivisible under God.
All right, I'm going to tell you what the people at Black Lives Matter, what they have to say. But before I do that, I wanted to make sure, let's put up the picture full mass. I want to make sure I provide some policy dynamics. Politics is a policy game. If you engage in politics without understanding that, you are already manipulated, number one. Number two, politics is messy. When you decide to say yes to the Republicans, have the same level of integrity as you had for saying no to the Democrats. If you're saying that Democrats are racist or their policies are antithetical to black people, which by the way, I agree. I agree that many Democratic policies are antithetical. We bring them out right here on this show. But to then try to sell to the nation, try to sell to black people that somehow Republican policies create an advantage for black people. There's a reason, dear brother, that while you endorse Donald Trump has never endorsed Black Lives Matter. There's a reason for that. You need to stop endorsing people who refuse to endorse you. He will not represent your policy agenda, nor will he represent mine. But some homework for you to do, sir. Household median income fell under the presidency of Donald Trump for black Americans. Employment ratio, the actual earned ratio of employment utilizing the U6 rating system fell under Donald Trump. College money dried up under Donald Trump. High school graduation of black children decreased under Donald Trump. The list goes on. I can also provide these data points for you. Under Democratic presidents at large, black families' incomes have grew an average of $895 annually, but only grew $142 under Republicans. The black unemployment rate fell by a net of 7.9 percentage points across 26 years of Democratic leadership, but it went up 13.7 points during 26 years of Republican leadership. Across the years of Democratic leadership, black poverty has actually declined by 23.6 percentage points when a Democrat was in charge of the White House, but it actually grew by 3 points when a Republican held the White House. The numbers are actually similar for Latinos as well. All right, Donald Trump said he is very honored after he received an early 2024 endorsement from a black man claimed to be a top activist in Black Lives Matter. The social justice movement that Trump continually blasted during his term as protests gripped the country in 2020 following the police killing of George Floyd. Word of the surprise endorsement emerged November 28 after self-proclaimed political activist Mark Fisher, who says he co-founded a BLM organization in Rhode Island, expressed his support for Trump during an interview with Fox and Friends while complaining about a Biden era policy or policies. And once again, let me set the record straight. It is perfectly fine to critique policy regardless of where it comes from. Perfectly okay. I do it all the time. But once again, to try to sell the false narrative that somehow Republicans are for black people based on their policies is insane. So Trump ran to Truth Social immediately, okay? Let's put it up. Why did Trump go to Truth Social? Because, well, Mr. Fisher he's basically a ploy. He's a proxy. He's a pawn. Spoke with Mark Fisher yesterday A great guy, very honored to have his and Black Lives Matter support. I have done more for Black people than any other president. Lincoln, ? Including 10-year funding for historically Black colleges and universities where they had none, opportunity zones, criminal justice reform, and much, much more. Thank you, Mark. One by one, I can knock those policies down. Trump set to defund and decrease funding for educational talent search, the federal TRIO program, you know it is upward bound. That was a whole lot of first-time college students in urban communities that dried up under his presidency. While we talk about criminal justice reform, remember, under Donald Trump, sentences actually increased. Nonviolent offenders spent more time in jail. His program, which was a graduation of Obama's program in a bipartisan bill, but the program he gets credit for, his prosecutors were arguing against judicial use of the program at the same time of him taking credit for that program, which, by the way, impacted less than 1% of the African-American community. Let's go to the next dynamic. It was 3 weeks ago in another interview on the Kim Iverson show. Fisher said, Black voters have been used and abused by Democrats for too long. I don't agree with that statement. I do not disagree, with that statement. I agree with that statement in the context of understanding both parties play this political game. But then he says, during the impromptu chat, Fisher even said everybody else sucks, meaning other contenders in the presidential race compared to Donald Trump. Here it is.
Do you feel alone in this viewpoint in the world that you're in, being in the BLM movement?
No, I feel like the tide is starting to turn. I feel like a lot of Black people are starting to pivot off of that Democratic plantation for so long. We've been slaves to that party. You know, actually, we've been mental slaves, afraid to get off of that plantation because, you know, we've been used and abused for so long at that party. They don't value our vote. Their policies are basically racist policies. And I believe it's a racist party that strikes at the heart of the Black family and the nuclear family in general. And I believe Donald Trump he's the opposite. He's going to tell you how it is. He's going to give it to you straight. He's not going to, be a hypocrite and stab you in the back like the Democratic Party loves to do. Trump has done more for the Black community than any president I can think of in my lifetime.
Name it. Name the policy, sir. He said he takes softball interviews because he knows no one is going to challenge him on these weak-ass Sean Hannity talking points. Black people are on a plantation. That's meant to invoke emotionalism out of Black folks so that we feel like, oh, we can't say we're for a Democrat because then this person says we're slaves. No, he wants you to think like him. And if you don't think like him, you must be a slave. But the truth is, if you think like him just because he tells you to, that is enslavement of the mental parameters. Here's the reality. He's utilizing an adopted blueprint. He's saying the same terminology that has been said by others who decided to do the about face. And naturally, he is absolutely invited to come on the bullpen any day. Brother, I don't care what day. If it's on a Sunday, I will make sure I am in the studio to debate you policy by policy. Now, I see you're hopping your happy ass on everybody's show talking about how Black people are slaves. Do you think Black people are stupid, sir? There's a reason why the majority of Black folks vote for the left-leaning candidate. There's a reason. All you have to do is look at the policy dynamics and what our values are. And you will see line by line that the connection you claim exists between policy, Republican Party, and Black America simply is not existent. Later, Gary Dantzler, the leader of Black Lives Matter Rhode Island, disputed Fisher's claim that he co-founded the social justice group. However, He did acknowledge that Fisher once worked for the organization for a short time before he was ultimately let go. Mark Fisher stated he was one of the co-founders of BLM. He told the Providence Journal without going into much detail. Absolutely not. He was a respected advocate for BLM. That's it. And he was paid, and somewhere he got fired and demoted. Fisher finds himself embroiled in controversy with many in the official Black Lives Matter movement, painting him as an imposter. He is listed as the founder of BLM Inc., a separate independent entity that purported to represent the broader Black Lives Matter movement led by Fisher, a relatively unknown former staffer with a new loose-knit connection on the national stage. He's the pawn. The website for BLM Inc. states the group is, quote, not affiliated with any other Black Lives Matter movement. Can I say that again? Not affiliated, Donald Trump, while you're appreciating Black Lives Matter for endorsing you. He's not affiliated. We don't know this cat. He's not from us. The Black Lives Matter Foundation also sought to discredit Fisher, calling him a political operative who was trying to pull an obvious publicity stunt. And once again, dear brother, if you simply are authentic about who you represent, how you represent, please submit your opinion all day. But to make a false proclamation or seemingly false proclamations that you are representing some level of the organized movement known as Black Lives Matter, or a significant portion thereof, is dishonest and dishonorable, in my opinion. Once again, you have the opportunity to come in at time of debate. All right, the right wing continues to use and amplify fringe Black voices to create an idea of broad support for their corrupt candidates. The foundation fumed in a statement to Business Insider, adding that Fisher's operation is illegitimate. All right, so Black Lives Matter, they've had to deal with charlatans in the past, individuals who claimed to be part of the movement. They were not. Some were soliciting contributions under false pretenses. That blew up. So we have this in front of us today. I'm not sure what kind of individual this person is beyond what I know publicly. But I will say this. If you are authentic, sir, and you believe policy by policy, your position is correct, I challenge you to come on the program. Let's have a conversation about it. All right, Rayvana, thoughts here.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting the way that, I mean, I'll be honest, even if Fisher hadn't misrepresented himself as a co-founder of Black Lives Matter or, a Black Lives Matter related organization, Fox News would have done it. They would have done it anyway. Yeah. They would have framed him as being, an important member of Black Lives Matter, higher up in the organization in order to push their narrative. And I have to believe that he knew that. And I have to believe that, when interacting with Fox News, when interacting with Kim Iverson, who's another individual who I wouldn't say is necessarily known for her strong relationship to the truth, he had to have known what he was doing, in my opinion. And if that wasn't his intent, I would love to see him come on the show and have a conversation with you, Dr. Ritchie, to go head to head about that. But it's interesting the way that Fox News operates in these manners, because you'll see them do this anytime they can find a Black person willing to praise Trump. They want to show some relationship to very well-respected Black advocacy organizations. They also do this whenever there's a crime that makes national news. They want to find a way to tie that individual to BLM. I remember after the subway shooting in New York, they were saying that the individual one time 6 years ago shared a BLM post. Obviously, this individual has strong ties to Black Lives Matter. And we saw the same thing after the man who was involved in a police chase drove into the Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and killed individuals there. They had to frame him as a BLM terrorist. So the ways in which, you know, they want to legitimize praise and tie individuals to BLM, and then also use BLM to, you know, sort of cast it in the light of being a terrorist organization. I just can't believe that he didn't know that was going to happen. I can't believe he was so ignorant going into that interview with Fox News that he didn't know exactly what was going to happen. And, you know, I think that he got his intended goal. He had a phone call with Donald Trump. You know, He got this media attention. That's, in my opinion, what he was attempting to do.
Right. He did not get a dinner. He has to be a white supremacist for that kind of invite from Trump. All right. We got another one, an update. Remember the story that we covered on day one. From day one, a deacon in Atlanta pulled over, simple traffic ticket. According to the officer, he refused to sign. That's not what the video showed. He kills this man, okay? We had the daughter on the program. We now have the actual footage, and I will give you the update. Here it is.
Body cam video shows an encounter between a church deacon and an Atlanta police officer that resulted in the deacon's death. It all started as a routine stop after an accident, and now the deacon's family is demanding justice.
All right, I did find you at fault in the accident.
I was in the red light. My light was green.
After then Atlanta police officer Kieran Kimbrough determined 62-year-old Johnny Holloman was at fault for an August 10th car accident.
You're gonna sign this ticket right here before I get my sergeant out here.
He tried to get him to sign a traffic citation.
Sign the ticket. Sign the ticket.
I'm not guilty.
Sign the ticket.
I'm just trying to make me say.
Holloman refused. The officer then tried to arrest him. The scuffle ends with Holloman on the ground.
Put your hands behind your back.
And the officer tasing him.
Put your hands behind your back.
Holloman eventually became unresponsive, and the officer cuffs him. He checks Holloman's pulse. A group of officers gather around, but it's not until paramedics arrive around 10 minutes later that CPR is performed.
It's been hard. It's been rough.
Nitra Holloman is his daughter.
What he did to our father was murder. It wasn't that he passed away.
Holloman was a deacon at a local church. His autopsy determined the tasing, along with existing heart disease, led to his death. The Atlanta Police Department said it fired the officer for not following the policy of calling a supervisor to the scene.
Now we're asking for the officer to be jailed and prosecuted to the fullest extent.
The former officer is appealing the firing, and his attorney said he acted lawfully. The district attorney will determine whether charges will be filed.
I would like to highlight a few things, make a correction to their reporting. Mr. Holloman never refused, never explicitly said no to signing the traffic ticket. He never did. He did what many of us do. He continued to plead his case. And while he was being tased, he clearly said that he will sign the ticket. It did not matter to this officer. The officer was fired because Mr. Holloman requested a supervisor. He wanted a sergeant there. Why did he want a sergeant? Because he could clearly see this officer, A, did not know what he was doing. The officer's 23 years of age. B, was being way too aggressive for a traffic ticket. So he wanted someone who had rank, which means likely they have a little bit of maturity. So he calls for the supervisor. Well, the young man doesn't bring a supervisor there. And that was the premise of his firing. Now, what I see, my personal opinion, is a criminal act. We had the daughter on Indisputable not too long ago, and here's what she said after she saw the video herself.
So first of all, nobody really came and spoke to me about what happened. My dad actually called me. So when he called me, he called out, he said, baby, but I could hear what was going on because the phone was on speaker, so I could hear my dad and I could also hear the officer. So seeing that video, it just gave me confirmation for what I already knew because I had already heard it. I didn't physically see it, but I heard it. So when I put what I heard to what I saw, yeah, I'm in outrage. And I feel like this officer, he needs to be prosecuted. I feel like he needs to be off the force and terminated. And I feel like the world needs to see what he did to my daddy. To me, it's just clear-cut murder. I mean, I don't know no other way to see it. And then for my dad to have to beg for help or to beg for his life over a traffic ticket, senseless.
Yep, senseless is the word, very senseless. There was a tow truck driver who actually aided the officer that led to the death of the deacon. They are calling for that tow truck driver to be indicted by the DA as well. And let me give you an indication of how policy should have changed a long time ago. The city of Atlanta, the council unanimously voted after the death of Deacon Holloman. They unanimously voted to end that policy. So now if you get a ticket and you don't sign, there's a box on the ticket that says refuse to sign. And you get to move on with your entire day. So does the cop. All right. They would like, obviously, a prosecution here. In a statement, the Atlanta Police Department said the goal of both the mayor and the district attorney is to provide transparency while recognizing that protecting the integrity of an investigation and possible subsequent prosecution may require temporary withholding of video evidence from public release. Attorney Davis, an attorney for the family, said the family is grateful Willis has taken this important step to ensure transparency. We're going to stay on top of this just like we always do and give you the update as it comes. Rayvonna, thoughts here?
I'll just say that oftentimes tasers and rubber bullets are referred to as non-lethal force.
Yeah.
Now that's a misnomer. They're
Right.
not non-lethal. And police officers often refer to them as less than lethal because they can and do kill people. Tasers kill people. Rubber bullets kill people. That's exactly what happened in this case. And officers feel emboldened to use those weapons because they feel like they're not engaging in the act of violence that they are. They're not so scared that they're gonna have to answer for killing people. But in reality, that's exactly what happens. And we absolutely need to change the way that we regulate the use of those types of weaponry by police officers in this country.
That's right. And you have to assume if there's an elderly individual in front of you, you're 23 years of age, you're physically fit, you've gone through the academy, you know combat, you have to use a taser on that person while they're on the ground? And you don't think this is going to cause significant injury or possibly even death to a person up in age? Come on, man. All right, so we'll bring you updates. Rayvonna, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. We got the bullpen next. Stick and stay.
Magic. It's showtime. And say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now I know what you're thinking, JR, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right? A few years ago when I realized that I was gonna have to wear makeup on the show. I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. You guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently what I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. At least I did. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial how to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw. All hands. Pick up a couple streaks. This is the guy we're putting on makeup. Look at that, dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much, but you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all shiny. People get on you for it. They'll say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas. and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
All right, welcome back. Good to be with you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get it. Welcome to the bullpen. All right, we have in the bullpen Mr. Donald Kimball, commentator, Young Voices, and communications manager, Washington Policy Center. Very accomplished young man. Good to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure's mine. We're going to chop it up about social media, this proclamation that somehow conservatives are being targeted on social media, and the reality of certain lawsuits that have gone forth, basically saying social media should not really regulate people on the platform. Everything should be free. I don't want to presume what you know, believe about this issue, so I will allow you to tell us and then opine.
Of course. Well, thanks again for having me. It's one of those issues where a lot of the time people can dismiss the idea of conservative censorship because it's not 100% total, right? You might say there are conservative voices being censored, and the response might be something along the lines of, well, okay, well, how can we still see big outlets like maybe like Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, or other prominent conservative voices? They're still out there. So there's not really censorship going on. But what we've actually seen is that there has been targeted censorship through social media companies, but it's done by pressure from the government and the White House, different departments, Department of Homeland Security, different institutions have gone out. And I would like to say that while most of the voices maybe have a conservative bent, I think it's a little bit more about trying to censor voices that dissent with whatever the powerful narrative needs to be for the people in power, I should say. So I think, it's a shorthand to say conservative voices are being censored, but I would say it's more about voices of dissent that challenge the narrative that the government usually wants to have as a baseline. And we've seen multiple examples of that.
I concur with the challenging of narrative dynamic because I do believe that individuals who are presenting a point of view, even if it is adverse to the normative point of view, should be able to have their voices heard, period. But Republicans or conservatives, when they decide to make issue with being banned from a platform, when you look at the but-for cause of why they did so or why they banned them, it's a legitimate reason. And typically it's a reason codified in the very contract you sign before you are allowed to engage on the social media platform. So let me ask the question in a more broader sense. Do you believe that these platforms should be completely absent of regulation from the private company itself?
Well, what I would say is when you're talking about the terms of service agreement that, you sign up for an account, you agree to these terms of service. What we've actually seen from different things like the Twitter files, or even recently, Michael Schellenberger had testified before Congress with other leaked documents. You've seen this in the Missouri v. Biden case that's going on about 4 months ago. They agreed to rule on this. You've seen that what initially happened is the White House or the FBI, different national departments of our government have come to these social media companies and pointed out tweets or posts or groups they don't like. And initially, there actually was pushback from these companies saying, actually, this doesn't violate our terms of service, so we're not going to. But what ended up happening then is you had prominent individuals in the government threatening of sorts to these companies to change their terms of service. And so then the companies did go in and manually change their terms of service so that then they could go back and censor a lot of this content. So I think it's a little bit of a false, choice to say either they have to have no regulation or the government stays or has total control. Because I think what's actually happening is the government is pressuring these companies to change their standard.
Well, Donald,
so that
Donald,
yeah,
allow me to insert this because we have limited time. I do want to know your position on the idea of deregulation because that's an important dynamic of our debate. Do you believe that these social media outlets should engage in unregulated content, or should they regulate the platform and just do it in a different way?
Yeah, I think a private company has its own right to regulate its own content and to set those standards. I think that right does exist. I think the problem, though, is the government coming in and pressuring these companies to take a certain stance. I think that's where you get into some of the line of the First Amendment. So the companies are protected.
And sir, that I agree with. So if the government, and let's utilize your hypothetical because we don't have any proclamation on the legal record, but let's utilize your hypothetical as fact. Let's say it's fact that the government is coming in, utilizing their power to pressure speech, even if it's a private company. Well, that is wrong. And that's what DeSantis did against Disney. That's wrong. You're utilizing legislation or government in order to penalize someone because you don't like what they're saying. But remember, in order for that to be an actionable claim, Disney had to say it. Disney had to say, this is what the government is doing to us. And we are filing suit enforcing our First Amendment right. So while they do have that right, it is their right. It's not my right and it's not your right. So they have to enforce it. Why is it that a company like Disney will enforce this right, but you have not seen that same enforcement from companies that are more powerful than Disney? If this is in fact how the government is starting to, let's just say, manipulate the powers that be.
It's hard to speculate on the motives of the big companies, but I would argue that pre-Elon's takeover, in particular with Twitter, that was a company that was very willing to go along with a lot of the narratives that the government wanted. And I think that you can look at a lot of the leaked emails that do confirm this White House collusion of sorts, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, but that's different. That's different now. Let's talk about that. Collusion, coordination. A private company, as you had just laid out on the show, a private company has the right of regulation. They have the right of MOU contracts, whatever association or partnership they choose to have, they can have that. You have private-public partnerships all over the place. The NFL, in many ways, is a private-public partnerships in some respect, given the stadium dynamics and city governments and state governments that are involved. We don't say, well, that partnership is somehow adversarial to the sentiment of the corporation. No, the corporation gets to choose it. And if we don't want the corporation engaging in that kind of behavior, we as a consumer, as customers, we can decide to economically disengage from that company. So my point to you is there's a conflation here of the terminology collusion and then force. Collusion means that they are in cahoots, meaning the company is saying yes to the influence. Force would mean the company is saying no, but the government is threatening them and giving them no other choice. So which one is it?
Well, I think that will be determined largely by the Missouri v. Biden case that will be held out. I think there's pretty ample evidence to suggest that it is a thinly veiled threat through a lot of the communications that have been issued. And there have been rulings against that the government can't abridge the First Amendment through private actors if it's the government's will through this force. So I think that you're going to see that these threats, again, the government is the biggest monopoly on force that we have in society, realistically speaking. And so when they come to a private company like Twitter or Facebook and they tell them, we take a look at these accounts, we want you to censor them, we want you to change your terms of service, it's very hard to say no. So Disney said no, and that's great. But the federal government is also a much bigger institution than the state of Florida, for instance.
Okay. And you don't suggest that it should be completely deregulated, even in a more moderate system. You don't want complete deregulation, right?
Again, if it's a private company, I think that they have the right to do what it is. I would highly promote a culture of free speech. I think that companies should be more willing to let voices of dissent exist because, as we've seen with things from COVID to the Hunter Biden laptop story, things that often were said, this is misinformation, this is false, later do turn out to be true. I don't think anyone has a monopoly on the truth. And so I would, even if it's a private company's right to censor and moderate things, I would encourage companies and our culture in the US to be very open to more speech, not less.
Yeah, and I concur with that final point. And I'm going to give you some stats as to where the pushback, much of it is coming from. 98% of American parents believe that social media platforms are dangerous and anyone under 18 should get some type of parental permission. More than 2/3 of parents believe that children under 18 need more legislative protection against social media. 89% of parents would like a law that would require children to obtain permission from the parents before getting on social media. 91% of parents support prohibiting social media apps, et cetera, et cetera. So you got a lot of your pushback of deregulation from there. And I got to tell you, I get the point, right? So the point is you have this massive platform that children are on. I don't want my daughter exposed to people saying the N-word without any pushback. And then the very people, the same people who say that this should be a free speech dynamic like Truth Social, I lasted on Truth Social for 5 minutes before they kicked me off. And I said nothing that was controversial. It was just because of who I am. So the same people that are launching the debate, right, and going and actually filing court cases are the same people engaged in the same level of activity of silencing others who are not in agreement with them.
Yeah, but my only response to that would be the St. Augustine quote, which is never judge a philosophy by its abuse. And so I would strongly encourage, that's really rotten behavior. And I don't support that either. I think that that's one of the problems sometimes with the conservative side is they'll say things like, we need smaller government. And then when they get in power, they don't make it smaller because they want to punish the people that they view as harming them. So I don't like the censorship of conservative voices. I do think, again, it's more about disrupting the narrative. They don't want that to happen. But I would also say that when you create your own platform and you want it to be a free speech platform, it should be a free speech platform. And you shouldn't silence or kick someone like yourself off just because of dissenting views either.
There you go. There you go. Listen, man, I mean, I want dissenting voices, so I entertain the conservative point of view on damn near every show. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.